kind of the plot outline of this in another show, let's quickly go back. The Descent 1, there's a group of girls, and they go...
Spelunking.
Yes, there's 6 of them. And as, one thing leads to another, and they get trapped down there, and it's not long after when they find that there's another creature, another species of creatures who lives down there, and they systematically are picked off one by one. And...
As in any good horror film.
Right. And one person escapes, and that's kind of where the second film picks up, is we have that one person. She's very traumatized from the events. There's a search party out looking for these girls. They find her. She can't remember anything that's happened, but a crazy sheriff forces her back down into the caves to try and find these girls. I think that basically, the long and short of it, that sums up what this movie is.
Yeah.
To me, the biggest difference between this one and the original is that this one was absolutely terrible in almost every way, in my opinion. I know that you felt like it maybe had some redeeming qualities.
Oh, definitely.
I did not.
Well, I think a huge problem is that you can't recommend it to anybody who hasn't seen the first one.
But I can't recommend it to anybody who has seen the first one.
Because it's definitely an inferior product, no doubt. But if you watch it on its own, it'd be fine. But who wants to watch The Descent 2, especially when it is linked so much to the first one?
Yeah, not even like a lot of sequels. This is a direct...
Right, like more or less it starts where the first one ends.
Right. So, let's go into it. And I'm going to go ahead and say this now. That I plan on spoiling this movie down to the end.
Okay.
Almost entirely.
That's fair enough.
Okay. I'm trying to think. One of my biggest things is in the first one, this system of caves almost plays a character. I think about like the movies like the original Alien, and it's so claustrophobic that in itself was the terror of it. You know, you never really saw the alien, and you had that a lot in the first one, and this wasn't shot that way at all, and you never had that sense.
And for a minute I thought he might start off on the wrong foot, because, pardon me, on the right foot, because one of the very first things that goes wrong is there's a cave-in, and then they're all kind of separated, and one of the girls is stuck in like some boulders, and I was like, oh, well, maybe, but they quickly went away from that.
Yeah. Right.
To the point where, like, the girl who was stuck in the boulders just crawled out.
Right. But in the first one, there is almost no light whatsoever. Okay? And anything you see on the screen comes from flashlights or the lamps on their helmets.
In glow stick.
Yeah. But this one, there always seemed to be ambient light coming from somewhere. It never felt that dark. They would come to similar places that had been seen in the first one, but they seemed like generic, washed-over versions of those original set pieces.
I agree.
And the effects in this were terrible.
Well, which is what I thought was really weird, because I thought it was the effects guy who did the directing.
Yeah.
But apparently that's not true. But yeah, they were terrible.
Yeah, I mean...
The creatures didn't look too bad.
Right.
But then you have, like, people getting stabbed in the neck, and it was just, like, straight rubber.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he stabbed that rubber in the... Or the worst of all, is if they fell into a cave.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like,
whereas, like, they just blue screened it. And...
Yeah, like, they're falling into the abyss, and it looks
like
terrible.
Wile E. Coyote falling down that business.
Right.
And they do it twice.
Yeah.
It was like, you know what? That looks so terrible the first time. Let's do it again.
Yes.
I was like,
so that visually, I thought this film had no style whatsoever.
I liked a few of the portions where there was unnecessary amounts of blood.
Yeah.
Because that stuff kind of reminds me of like an Evil Dead or something. But that's not enough to carry an entire film.
Yeah. I will also say, at the end of the first one, there are 2 girls. Our main character, whose name is...
Sarah.
And another girl her name is Juno. And, with not going too much back into the original Descent, there were some issues with Juno sleeping with Sarah's husband and yada yada yada. And as they're both about to get out of the caves, Sarah takes a pickaxe and slams it into Juno's leg, leaving her to die.
So she can get away.
Right. About halfway through this movie, we come across Juno again. And in the timeline that the film presents to us, it has been 2 days. She comes off like she's lived in these caves for years. Like that hardened expert, yada, yada, yada. I know how to survive down here. If you want to live, come with me. She's been there for 48
Was that
hours.
a Sylvester Stallone impersonation?
It was just
Okay.
an impression of no one. Juno does not sound like that at all, because she is a girl.
Right.
But
And she doesn't look like Sylvester Stallone either.
right, but it came off very strange to me.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't bother. It's a cheesy horror flick.
Right.
I'm not too bothered by that.
Yeah, and I also felt like this. I have a very difficult time placing what's going on because maybe this takes place in America. I'm pretty sure we're supposed to believe that it does. Yeah, because I believe it's actually in the Appalachian Mountains. If you look on, Appalachian Cave System, based on what IMDb shows us. And then all of a sudden they create this story for Juno, even though she's Scottish, that her father is a senator.
Is she Scottish, though?
Well, I thought they were all British friends.
Oh, I thought it was all taking place in...
Right, and you might think that because even though it indicates here that it takes place in America, half the people have British accents, and accents were coming and going.
Yeah.
Sarah especially, regular accent, and then all of a sudden she broke into a thick Scottish accent, and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff just... When I don't like a film already, that's the stuff that I just start nitpicking on.
Right.
So, I don't know. Do you have anything you want to add to
No,
this?
it was not a very good film. And the ending was especially nonsensical.
Yeah.
And it's just...
I'm not going to give that away. If you choose to watch The Descent 2, I want you to get to the end and be like, what?
Yeah.
At the end of it, just like we were. But I can't recommend this to anybody. Like you said, if you haven't seen The First Descent, this one won't be any good to you. And if you have seen The First Descent, you'll hate this one.
Right.
I feel.
Yeah.
So, that being said, we also watched Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans.
We did, didn't we?
Now, I've never seen the original Bad Lieutenant. Have you?
No.
I really don't know much about it at all, to be honest with you. I know Harvey Keitel's in it.
Yeah.
And it was really kind of been my impression that this movie was only connected to that one in name alone.
I agree.
That it's not a continuation of any story whatsoever. I think initially we were planning on watching this almost as a joke because it's
Nicolas
got
Cage in it.
Nicolas Cage and Val Kilmer
Yeah.
and Exhibit.
Right. And with a cast like that, we felt like we needed to see it.
Right. And it was, on Rotten Tomatoes, it was at 87%.